welcome to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. I'm Sheng Peng, editor-in-chief of San Jose Hockey Now. You can also find my work at MEC Sharks and on Twitter at Sheng_Peng.
And I'm Keegan McNally. You can find me on Twitter at @half_hockey, at my website, half-hockey.com, or at San Jose Hockey Now. This week, big, exciting week.
Yes, we have a special guest. We have Jonathan Becher, Sharks president. We have him talk about the Macklin Celebrini effect, why it took the Sharks so long to embrace the rebuild, and what could happen if the Sharks and the city of San Jose don't revise the SAP Center Management Agreement, which changes radically against the Sharks in July 2025.
We talk a lot about Macklin Celebrini in that interview, and that's actually going to be our main headline topic for our discussion first, is the Macklin Celebrini ELC. We're going to have some way too early, too dumb points predictions, as well as our general reactions and maybe where he slots in the team or where we think he might line up with some players next year. We're going to talk briefly about the Dickinson ELC, who also signed this week, as well as Emberson, who signed a one-year $950,000 AAV contract, and just a laying out of where the defense is right now. And then finally, we have a short segment on the Barracuda and just some of the ins and outs of how the vets have been kind of shuffled around in the Barracuda since the past couple of years. So before we get to the Jonathan Becher interview, which is awesome, and you all should stick around for it because he was a great guest, and it's awesome to have the president of the San Jose Sharks on this podcast for the first time. So it was a exciting week. The Macklin Celebrini watch officially ended last Saturday, was it? It's an interesting day to release such big news, but it's over.
Yeah.
We got him. I think just the cat seemed to be out of the bag after a little bit of time. You had been like very gung-ho that it was gonna happen the whole time, pretty much. And there it was. And how did you? I noticed on Twitter that you had put out he's definitely going to sign story like 30 minutes before he definitely signed. So how did that go about exactly?
It was 10 minutes before, but I actually can't say everything I know about what happened. But I will say that from a marketing perspective, having this announced on a holiday weekend on a Saturday may not have been ideal. But but that sometimes things like this happen, and so sometimes you just put a story out before people like me, I guess, can leak it or whatever. In terms of just the last couple of months, right, with all the information that I've gathered and people I talked to, I wasn't 100% sure he was coming out when the Sharks won a draft lottery, but
sure,
after talking with people and just getting a sense, right, of just his personality from people around him, and just how much the kid loves he wants a challenge. He wants the whatever the top challenge is. Part of the reason why he went to the NCAA, from what I understand, was that was the most challenging league for a 17-year-old that he can go into, basically, before getting drafted. Because he'll be playing against men in some cases, right, in the NCAA, which he might not do in other leagues. And so weighing all that together, it didn't really make sense for him to go back to college in my mind. He had already mastered that game in his 1 year there, right? He was a Hobie Baker Award winner for best college player.
Yep.
He did not win a national championship, but like I've mentioned many times, I don't get the sense that he's a kid from Vancouver. He's not Will Smith, who grew up loving Boston College, right? So it's not the same thing there. It's not that kind of tie there, right? And so I think for Macklin, it would come down just simply what's better for him in his career, and that I think that was pretty clearly the NHL, I think, because even the college, like a lot of times when we talk about a 17, 18-year-old, right, like they got to build up their body a lot. And granted, Macklin is still 18 years old, so he's not, in terms of just the physical part of it, he's not fully kind of developed or formed, right? But for an 18-year-old, though, and you can tell that he's pretty well built, though. He's strong.
Yep.
And so all these things sort of indicated to me, along with talking to people, that kind of in his sort of, I wasn't talking to like to Macklin. I wasn't talking to Rick Celebrini about it necessarily, but people that know him or around it, kind of, right, that it was really trending that way, and it was almost so automatic that I didn't really report it over the couple months, or in the month or so after they dropped him, because it seemed pretty clear to me he was going to come out, even if it wasn't like 100%, even though it wasn't decided. And so the only time I would ever mention is on a podcast. If we talk about it, like, well, I think he's coming out. I think he's coming out, right? And anyway, so I think the last check on things, though, or the last sort of barriers for him coming out might have been if the Sharks did not add anyone around him in free agency. If they basically gave the team to, hey, here are the keys, good luck with the 2023-24 Sharks. That might have given him pause. That's a little bit too much to give to an 18-year-old. I think that the Sharks addressed that, though, with claiming Barclay Goodrow. And I wrote about this, that as much as a lot of fans denigrate Goodrow, right? Goodrow is respected league-wide. And so that's a pickup that speaks to hockey people. That speaks to, I believe, to Macklin Celebrini. Obviously, Tyler Toffoli, bringing him in, right? Like, I don't need to sell you Tyler Toffoli. I don't need to sell anybody Tyler Toffoli, right? 8-time 20-goal scorer, 3-time 30-goal scorer, won a Stanley Cup. So I don't need to sell anybody on Toffoli. And then the other guys they brought in, like Brunstrom, Dellandrea, Jake Wallman, just guys that, the forwards I mentioned there, right? They have that mixture of hard to play against, great attitude. Wallman is very, very talented offensively, great shot. So very tangible improvements to the team and to the room and all that stuff, right? That were clear for both Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith to see. Will Smith alluded to that. And I believe in development camp, that he was told too that the Sharks would make improvements, that they wouldn't just give the keys over to Celebrini and Smith and say, hey, good luck. Mm-hmm. So I think that was one big part of it. And the Sharks passed that test, at least in the eyes of Celebrini and his family and his representation. The last part of it was that Celebrini had to come to development camp, and he had to like San Jose, and he had to like the guys around him. And granted, that was likely going to happen, right? But who knows, right? Like maybe Joe Thornton would shoe check him or something like that, and that would
it kind of felt like
somebody would hate that. And so
kind of felt like they pulled out all the stops. They brought in, like, all the old vets, and like just they looked like they were all having a great time. And they kind of put that show on for Macklin as like not a show, but like hockey can still be fun in the dismal Sharks environment that was last year. Like there is still something there, I think.
Yeah. I wouldn't characterize it as kind of pulling out all the stops. I think that's more in free agency and acquisitions. But yeah, for sure though, they put a good foot forward there. Though they so. It was a kind of, I don't know if it was that much different than other development camps in terms of what they do for the players and that sort of thing, right? But that was not likely to fail. But you never know, though. You have to actually be in San Jose for the 3-4 days, or he was here or whatever, right? You have to room with Will Smith. I mean, I think they had already been talking over text, but things could have gone wrong in some way or another, I guess. Or maybe a reporter asked too many annoying questions of him. I don't know. A certain reporter asked too many annoying questions of Macklin. I'll be like, oh, I don't want to come here this year. See you guys later.
Shang's going to ask me too many questions about when I'm going to sign my ELC. And
exactly,
it's
right? Exactly. So at that point, then I checked in and with sources. And they just communicated the same thing, that it looked all positive post-development camp. And at that point, there was really no barrier to him signing at that point. And so that's what gave me sort of the confidence to put out my story that it was going to happen. And then it happened. So,
yeah. It makes me really happy, only because, not that this was ever going to happen, because Macklin seems very happy here, but it's like, this is it. Like, you drafted him. There's no Will Smith watch. There's no Cutter Gauthier watch. There's no NCAA watch. There's no, like, Macklin's coming. And
there's no more reading of HF boards or Reddit rumors, right?
There's no more Twitter rumors that like
Twitter rumors.
I
right?
heard from my cousin's cousin that he's not coming, and I will put my entire Twitter reputation, which is 7 followers,
Yeah,
on it.
right. I mean, you guys should thank Keegan because Keegan sends
Mhm.
me these things, and it's like I'm like, okay, I guess I had to check
Yeah.
on it.
I
And
send
usually I can't
all
check
the
on it.
rumors, and I preface all the rumors I hear on the internet because I go deep in the internet to find rumors that they're all bullshit. Like they're almost always bullshit, including some just really stupid ones. But they're fun to read. But unless you like there's certain ones where maybe somebody's just leaking stuff, but most always it's just somebody making up stuff.
Yeah, but
And
it's good for me though because it gives me something to write about.
yeah,
I think actually a number of the stories I've done, actually like the Rick Celebrini interview that I did a couple of months ago, which I
yep,
think was the first one that he had done in a while. It was before the draft lottery, and that was because you told me there was some rumor on Reddit, I think, or
somewhere, yeah,
that someone knew Rick Celebrini and he hates the Sharks and he hated how Macklin was treated with the junior Sharks. And so the best way to cut a rumor like that off at the head is just go to the guy and ask him. And
yep,
if the guy will go on video on record like Rick was willing to and say, no, we're actually really excited about him coming to San Jose. Well, there goes that rumor, right?
yep.
Yeah.
So keep making them up, guys. Like do the William Macklin's gonna force a trade because he's jealous of Macklin's hair or something. I'm all for it. But I think I'm really excited. I think he is gonna. Obviously, there's gonna be growing pains next year.
Mhm.
There's a lot of growing pains with him
Sure.
and Will Smith. So I think that's the first thing that, where as we get closer to opening day, that people are going to have to realize it's not going to be 80, 90 point seasons out of Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini to start their careers, right? Like they're going to struggle like every single rookie in the NHL does, And Macklin is more well built than most kids coming out, but he's not like a super freak,
Sure.
completely athlete that is going to
He's
dominate.
not LeBron James.
Yeah, he's not LeBron.
In ice skates, yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to take some time for him to develop in multiple different ways. But excited for Macklin. It's Return of the Mac. And it created a lot of buzz. And Jonathan Becher talks about all of the different buzz it's created from a business standpoint and just from a revival of the Sharks standpoint. So
Right. Tom
around for
Marchand
that.
said at development camp, and it's rare to have a front office person say something like this kind of transparent. And he said there's a buzz in the Sharks organization that wasn't necessarily here. No disrespect. He didn't say this part of it, but that's no disrespect to other great prospects and great players that the Sharks have. But there's a buzz that hasn't been here in a long time. And I could feel it too, just as a reporter, that there's a buzz here that hasn't been here since the Sharks last made the playoffs in 2019.
Yeah, and just to think there was a 75% chance that we wouldn't feel this way, that we would feel really just okay with Artem Levshinov or something.
It'd have been way different if it was Artem Levshinov or Caden Lindstrom. I would love to see one day, maybe a decade from now, Chris Morehouse will tell us who was number 2 on the Sharks list.
I always love those.
Yeah, I always love those what ifs.
Because they said that about William Macklin, I think, that he was like number 2 on their list or
Right.
something.
That was Doug Jr.
Doug Jr.,
Out.
yeah.
It was Matt Beniers was number 1
Yep.
on their list, and Eklund was number 2.
We've got to wait 10 more years. He's got to be out of the Sharks organization for sure.
Right,
It's going to be a long time. But maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
Okay, let's do this. Let's start with, where do you think he lines up? A, does he line up at center?
Yes, I think so.
Where does he line up?
I think that the way the Sharks are constructed, and assuming they have a relatively good amount of health in training camp, which you never know, but I think Ranlund is safe at center. I think Wenberg is safe at center. I think Sturm is safe at center. And I actually really like where Wenberg and Sturm, where I kind of see them slotting in the third and fourth lines, because I think that's where they fit on a good team. Yep. And the Sharks have not had a bottom 6 quite like that I've ever seen since 2019, when they had Joe Thornton on the third line. Yep. And so I think that bottom 6 has the potential to be actually a really good bottom 6 between Wenberg and Sturm, and let's say it's Cunnin, Grunstrom, Delandria, and Gaudreau. on your wings
Mm-hmm.
at the for your bottom six. But it does make your top six though kind of, there's a lot of unknowns here, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini are unknowns. Even guys like William Eklund and Fabian Zetterling, who had pretty good seasons last year, they were good seasons on really bad teams, and they don't have a track record of production. So how are they going to do with maybe more attention paid to them, or maybe a little less ice time because you're giving it to Tyler Toffoli, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if they're able to take that next step. That's a big if. Hopefully they can. You feel pretty good about Mikhail Granlund, even though Mikhail Granlund's miscast as a 1C. He's a pro. He's a good player. So he's going to be fine in whatever center role he's in. And Tyler Toffoli obviously is as kind of safe, reliable bet for a scorer that you can find out there, at least in the free agency market. So you feel pretty good about him cashing in on a good 25 or whatever this coming season, right? Maybe hopefully more.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, looking at that forward construction, and this isn't counting wild cards like Logan Couture if he's healthy. Definitely the Sharks top six could use a healthy Logan Couture, be it at center or wing. And you also have Klim Kostin. You have pretty good prospects in Gushin and Borlo. Can they take another step? But anyway, overall with Celebrini, I see Celebrini being able to hold on to that 2C spot for most of the season. I'm not sure if he takes the 1C spot this year from Granlund. I don't know if he's quite, maybe he will by the end of the season, but
Mm-hmm.
I think I feel pretty good about him in year 2C. And I think also something I didn't mention too, that's something that I've given Mike Grier a lot of kind of, in retrospect, right, in the last couple of months, seeing what happened with the 2023-24 Sharks, I put a lot of that on Mike Grier's doorstep, and I've
Sure.
said that, right?
Yep.
But I give him and his staff a lot of credit that I think they did a really smart job in terms of who they picked up too, in terms of positionally. I mean, specifically Wenberg, Gaudreau, and Delandria. And I mentioned these three guys in the same kind of breath because these three guys can play center too. Gaudreau and Delandria, even though you think of them as wings, they played a lot of center in their life too. And so
Mm-hmm.
basically, and Mike Grier alluded to this in, I think, his last press conference, that part of the thinking for that, right? Like after they signed Wenberg, everyone's immediate reaction is, "Oh, that's not good for Logan Couture. Does that mean that Logan Couture is not going to be ready for the beginning of the season?" That sort of thing, right? Which is still very much an unknown. We don't know if Logan's going to be ready for the beginning of the season, but that was the immediate reaction by everybody that this was Logan Couture's insurance, and it is. But signing Wenberg is also insurance for Celebrini and Smith in terms of center being a very difficult position to learn in the National Hockey League, being more difficult to learn than wing. And
Mm-hmm.
so it gives sort of that support. So let's say you have Celebrini or Smith at center, but you have a wing there who is very well aware of center responsibilities, right? And so that winger, be it Gaudreau, be it Delandria, let's say it's Logan Couture's on wing, right? That guy can come and help with the defensive responsibilities and kind of alleviate that off of Celebrini or Smith's plate. Or maybe critical time in a game, maybe you have a guy who's more experienced take that face off and
Mm-hmm.
not force that on a Will Smith or a Celebrini. So I think that's really, really smart, that focus on not just Logan Couture insurance, but also getting other forwards who are very capable of playing center to kind of provide insurance and protection for Celebrini and Smith.
And that used to be the Sharks' MO too. Like they'd always have kind of dual responsibility
Mm.
winger centers, like like Hurdle and Pavelski and Marlowe, and I mean Joe was always a center, but there used to be a long history of that kind of thing.
Mm.
Gives you more flexibility throughout the lineup and
Right,
helps
right.
your young guys develop. Like
Yeah,
if
that's a good point.
like somebody like a Hurdle has to start on the wing, or somebody in this case like a Smith has to start on the wing, and can convert back to center and learn from the centers that have already been through it, like Wenberg and Sturm and everything. So,
Right. I remember Doug Jr. Referenced that with Eklund because I think the
mm-hmm.
plan for the Sharks back then when Eklund was drafted was he would start at wing and he would transition over to center eventually
Sure.
using Tomas Hurdle as a model. And maybe that may well be the case with Eklund still.
Mm-hmm.
But Eklund's another guy too that he was kind of submarine or submerged last year
Yeah.
overwhelmed at center last year, but he's another year older and he's capable. He's smart enough to play center for sure. There's not a question about that part of it. And so maybe he can help in that regard too. And so, yeah, there's just a lot of kind of, like you mentioned, a lot of flexibility,
A lot of options for sure.
A lot of options, right? So
but
I think
I like, though, like you mentioned, the Celebrini at 2C. I think that makes a lot of sense. You give Granlund the experienced vet, hopefully the tougher minutes, and you leave Celebrini on a second line to create, and you line him up with some, skilled wingers, maybe to Foley, to give him like the opportunity to create in the not limited even strength minutes, but less than the first line. Right. And it's still not going to be a good team next year. Everybody's probably realizes that it's still not going to be a good team, but maybe better. I think
it should be. We'll see. People like to remind me, that's fair, that I predicted more of the Sharks team last year in terms of in our bold prediction, right? Sure. And I was just
trying to be really bold.
I was trying to be really bold. I kind of regretted it when I made that sort of prediction, but nonetheless, though, it's out there. I said it right. And I didn't really put together the roster construction well. And I saw the roster construction fall like in flames before my eyes within 11 games.
Yeah. This year could still, like, we could
it's
have
like watching
5
a
injuries.
scaffolding. It's like watching a scaffolding just burn right in front of your eyes within the first 11 games. Like you mentioned, it could happen again this year, but I think I don't think it will, though, just because it makes a lot more sense what they're doing, really. The guys that they're bringing in, the sort of the attitude, the competitiveness that they're bringing in, mixed in with some skill from Toffoli and Wallman. And it shouldn't be as bad. I find that hard to imagine, unless the only thing that I can, if the goaltending falls apart. If goaltending falls apart, it doesn't matter how good the team is in front of you, right? Like look at like the Oilers, right? How they started off last season. So it doesn't. So that's the only thing that like you can't really predict. If both Blackwood and Vanacek are terrible. But I don't predict that. I don't think that will happen because they're going to have a better team in front of them. So I think they should be fine too. Or at least they're going to be put in a better environment than Blackwood and Captain were in last year. So should be better. So
all right, we did it for Smith. So we need to do it for Celebrini. So we have to do a points prediction.
That's right. What'd you say for Smith? You said 45?
44 was what I said for Smith.
Oh, okay. And I said 35, right? I think I was lower end.
Somewhere around there, 35 probably.
On the scale, so.
So we have to figure out a points prediction. Do you want to go first? What do you got?
You go first. I'm going to cheat a little bit because I want to look at. I just want to look at point totals for rookies over the last decade or so. So I don't want to go too under or go too over here. So
all right, then I'm going 49.
Oh wow, you're going. I think that's very conservative. Considering you gave Smith
44.
You gave Smith.
He's a year older. He's more of a power play guy. He produces, insanely well. I think I'm going 49. So just a little bit better than Smith. In terms of production.
This is actually interesting trivia because I'm looking this up on NHL.com. So, name the highest scoring rookie in terms of points in the last, let's say since 2013-14. Yeah, since 2013-14. I don't think you'll guess it.
It's not Connor McDavid.
Yeah, because he got hurt.
It
probably would have been Connor McDavid if he had stayed healthy. I think he probably has the highest average.
He probably does. He's probably like 0.9 points per game or something like that.
He was 0.107. Well, actually, only slightly higher above the guy that actually does have the highest points total for a rookie
Jack Eichel,
in the last decade. Nope. Jack Eichel doesn't even show up in the top 15.
Artemi Panarin, was he a rookie then?
Artemi Panarin is second.
I got 2.
16, 77 points. You got one. You got one. So
I got second place, I guess.
Oh, you got second. Oh, okay. Yeah.
He also was like 25 when he was a rookie. So
he was 25. Yeah.
I don't know if that counts really.
Well, nonetheless, hey, I'm just going with the NHL.com filter. So.
Man, I don't know. Connor Bedard.
Connor Bedard is 13th on this list with 61 points.
I'm
I
way
think Connor
off.
Bedard might have the worst plus minus of anybody on this. Yeah, he does.
Celebrini
The last
might
decade.
catch him next year. You might catch
Yeah,
him.
actually, Bedard minus 44, Kevin Kurchinski minus 39 have
Oof.
the worst plus minuses of any rookie in the last
God.
2000, in the last decade. So
Oh my
I'll give
God.
you one more guess, and then not
Nope.
to
Man,
keep this going, keep this bit going, but you won't guess it though. Yeah,
I won't.
I was shocked to see this. So.
Go ahead. Who is
Okay,
it?
it's Matthew Barzal, who in
Oh.
2017-18 had 85 points.
Wow, I would not have guessed that.
Yeah,
Like at all.
at all, right? Because he's basically,
A 50,
at least
60 point guy
production-wise,
now.
he's the same player.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's like a 60s point guy now, right?
Well, he had 80 this past season. I'm looking
he did.
at. So he did have a couple down years there. You're right, but he got back to 80 this past year. But it's still his best season, and not
Wow.
we don't judge everybody just by points. I know that,
Sure.
but his best season in terms of production is still his rookie season, 2017-18, which is kind of crazy, right? So.
I would not have gotten it.
Yeah, no, I would not have got that either. So just to fill this out, Panarin was number 2 with 77 in 2015-16. Austin Matthews, which would have been a good guess, was 69 points in 2016-17. Pedersen, 66 points, 2018-19. And Clayton Keller rounds out the top 5 with 65 points, Arizona, in 2017-18. And just
Is
because...
there a way to sort that by like... I mean, I guess you could do it on elite prospects, but like elite, just draft plus 1 years. So Celebrini's so young, he's going to be coming right in.
Yeah. There probably is a way, but
because I know like Hughes went right in and he had like 20 points or something.
Yeah, he had
a
rough year. But I guess Matthews would have been an example of a guy who came in his D plus 1 year, right, and was strong.
Yeah.
So that's sort of that's going to be the highest for
2016, like 60 something.
69 points for Matthews. McDavid averaged a point per game. His point per game average was slightly higher than Barzal's. Barzal was 1.04. McDavid was, 1.07. So McDavid would definitely be up there if he had stayed healthy. That might be, in terms of what you're talking about. Well, actually, Patrick Laine, of course, had a great rookie season. He had 64 points in his rookie season after he got drafted, and he was drafted right after Austin Matthews. So and so anyway, I think, and obviously Bedard, as much as we're making fun of his plus minus, he had 61 points in just 68 games. That's very, very good. Anyway, okay, so you have 49 for Macklin Celebrini.
I'm probably gonna regret this, but I will always be.
You want to stick with it?
No, I think 49's fine. He's more of a two-way guy. The Sharks are bad. I'm gonna go with 49.
Okay. I was thinking actually 50, so I'm pretty close, but I'm going to be a little different than you. Okay. 50 was my initial. If I had gone first, I was going to double check it against past history.
Then I would have had to make the bold prediction.
I'll go a little higher, though. I'll go 55, even though you're right. He is more kind of two-way, so maybe he's going to start off a little bit slower. Not a perfect comparison because Jonathan Taves, had an extra year in school before he made his debut with the Blackhawks.
Sure.
But I think Taves had 64 points his first year. That was a better team, of course, that Taves jumped into than Celebrini is going to jump into. So 64 points, I think, was Taves' rookie year. So anyway, I am going to go with 55, and we'll see. Maybe I'll change my mind by... I don't know.
Matthew Tkachuk had 48 in his draft plus 1 year.
Oh, I'm sorry. Taves had 54, by the way. But Taves did that in 64 games. So 54 points in 64 games, which is still pretty good. That would have got him over 60 over a full season, obviously. So.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the Sharks being not god-awful anymore, but just awful.
But the argument, though, is that there's more opportunity, though, right?
True.
So a guy like, say, a Bedard,
and there is more.
If he had joined the Oilers or some other team, maybe he wouldn't have scored as much because he wouldn't have as many minutes. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot more scoring nowadays in the NHL, especially last season, than there has been in the past on all of these historical comps. So 48, or what are you sticking with? Sorry.
I'm gonna go with 55. I'm gonna give a little bump there. So
great. Yeah, give him a little bump, and Smith will be so you say 35 for Smith and 55 for Smith. Okay,
And my bold prediction now is that Macklin just loses the Calder to Matvey Michkov.
Whoa, you're a Michkov fan now. Well,
No, I was always, if you
yeah,
remember,
I
I
remember.
always said that I would have drafted Michkov in that spot.
Hmm.
Even if I put out stories, and hey, I got the stories from
Sure.
credible sources. I think that maybe not necessarily the best team guy, all kinds of things, right? But nonetheless, though, that
Yeah, we'll see.
yeah, that even if he wasn't this or that kind of guy, that he's still very draftable, and that you can kind of work with a guy like that. Just because a guy isn't a finished product at 18, right? A guy can grow up, right?
Hmm.
So that's what I sort of thought would happen with the Michkov,
Hmm.
and now he's coming way sooner, right? I mean, obviously, if teams thought that he could come over in a year, that could have changed where he got drafted.
Yep.
Granted, we don't even know if he met the Sharks. That's one thing I'm still not sure about.
We'll never
And I
know.
right, and I understand if you don't want to draft a guy who will meet with you. That's kind of trying to pull that
Actually,
card,
that's
right?
our question for Chris Morehouse in 15 years when he's no longer with the Sharks
Oh
or
man, I
whatever.
gotta find out sooner than that. I mean, that's not that big a revelation whether or not he
Mm-hmm.
met with the Sharks or more, so
Mm-hmm. All right.
or not. So yeah, so I'm gonna keep digging on that one in
Mm-hmm.
particular. But anyway, though, so that's my bold prediction though that Michkov is.
Is the Calder winner?
Yeah, who else is out there? I mean, there's a lot of very good
Well,
candidates.
there's a,
Obviously, Will Smith is a good candidate.
of
Cutter
course.
Gauthier, right?
Yep. There's a little known guy by the name of Shakir Mukhamadullin. That's a bit. Bam! This is a good transition, man.
I just saw a list of HF boards. There's a poll of like
Oh.
40 players,
Hmm.
and Shakir Mukhamadullin did not make this
Ah,
list. So that's
fuck.
what a travesty.
I'm just saying, good odds right now. You
I'm
know,
looking at
like
Brennan Offman. I'm looking at Scott
oof,
Morrow for defenseman. Axel Standing Pelika on defense. So
none of them are
even
gonna win
Artem
it.
Lashunov is in here. So
Maybe. I mean, he has to play in NHL instead of the AHL. Supposedly, they want to send him to the AHL or whatever.
well, anyway, do you think since we're talking Calder, then early prediction, who is your Calder winner
Wait,
for
who name
2025?
some more realistic names on
Okay,
that list?
I'll name
Who
the
else you
top of the
got?
list here:
Yeah.
Celebrini, Smith, Gauthier, Matt Savoy, which I don't think is that realistic. Michkov, Frank Nazar,
Hmm.
Reinbacher, Hudson, Shane Wright. That's a good sleeper one. Coolidge. Now I think now we're going into the
Yeah,
man, maybe
not
not,
not
right? Yeah,
likely.
so yeah,
I
now we're getting
guess
a little deeper
I'm
on this
gonna
list.
I'm gonna choose Macklin Celebrini.
Are you okay?
I can't
Oh,
choose both
here's a
Macklin
very good
Celebrini
one.
and 49 points
Here's
though.
a very
So
good one that I did not mention. Stankoven, which I think is a good one
oh,
because he
Stankoven's a
showed
good
in the
one.
playoffs that he can play in this league. So he might
Stankoven's a
be a
good one.
good sleeper one. And I think the goalies on this list could be good sleeper ones too, because they might have good opportunity. Wallstedt and Wolf. So those are a couple of sleeper ones too if they get the playing time, the starting time.
Sure.
But so you're still gonna go with Macklin with
I
49
no,
points in the
I
Calder?
can't. Yeah, I can't. The logistics don't make sense. The logic doesn't make sense for 49 points for the
Right.
Calder. So I'm gonna
I mean,
choose
it could
Michkov.
happen. I think guys have won with that point
Yeah, that's
total,
super
but
low, and I think
yeah.
Michkov probably outscores that, or somebody, or Hudson has like a 40-point D season or something, you
Okay.
know. So I'm gonna go with Michkov. I'll copy you. My inner
Weakness.
fan wants to choose Celebrini and like 70 points or something like that, you know. But realistically, I don't
Hey,
know.
it could happen too. So I think
Hmm.
that I think that Will Smith will have trouble. That's why my point totals reflect
Sure,
that a little bit. So while I am a Will Smith fan, I'm a little more cautious in terms of just his immediate introduction to the league and
hmm
how that's going to go. But Celebrini, I feel pretty good about. Part of the calculation for why I thought he was going to come out was that very smart hockey people were telling me that this guy could step right in to the NHL in the playoffs and be a fourth line center. Like
sure,
that's how ready he is. No
yeah,
one was saying that about a Will Smith, right? Because Will has obviously more things to clean up in his game overall than Celebrini does. And so who knows? Maybe Celebrini surprises us, and he does have that kind of impact season. Austin Matthews, Connor Bedard, where point per game or whatever. I don't know, I'm not putting that past him too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I feel pretty good though. 55, I think, is a good.
I'm gonna keep expectations low because we
Okay.
are piling quickly all of the expectations on Macklin Celebrini. Like every day we're just like, could he save the entire franchise by tomorrow?
Could he solve climate change?
Could he solve climate change? Have you heard of the Ukrainian-Russian war? Can Macklin figure it out? Yeah, the answer is yes.
Yes to everything.
Yes to everything. And he's going to win the
We
Calder.
don't know if I couldn't do it.
And he's going to win the Calder tomorrow. Anyway, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic. And if I'm wrong, I don't care. It's fine.
Oh, here's something fun. What if Macklin Celebrini, I don't know if anyone's ever done this. Macklin Celebrini wins the Calder Trophy, and he goes to the minor leagues and helps the Barracuda win the Calder Cup. Has that ever happened? I wonder.
Cannot imagine that somebody would do that. I also don't know if the Sharks would let him do that. They'd be like,
yeah, I don't know either. But
save your knees and your ankles and your head.
Right. But I'm just saying, I don't know if anyone's ever done that in the same season, the Calder Cup and the Calder Trophy.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool, right?
Yeah. All right. Speaking of our future Calder winner, Shakir Mukhamadullin,
and solve climate change too,
and solve climate change. We're going to talk a little bit about the defense. We're going to transition off of the end of Celebrini watch, and it's officially the end of Emberson watch, which you all were very clearly following. Emberson had he elected for salary arbitration, but they didn't get there. He ended up signing a 1-year deal today or yesterday, was it?
It was today, I guess.
Today.
Or announced today. Could have been signed yesterday, but announced today.
$950,000 for 1 year. If Emberson doesn't play 50 NHL games this year, he turns into a UFA, which is interesting. Something like E2 Makiniemi turned into UFA because he didn't accrue enough NHL games. So just an interesting little quirk as guys get older that they have to retain or get to a certain amount of NHL games to retain their RFA status. And that's where Emberson's at, guy who's been on the waivers and everything. So it'll be interesting to look out for this year to see if he does get into that 50-game mark.
Right.
And I'm hopeful. I also think he does. But I think it's a little telling that they didn't sign more, at least not yet, sign more D so far. What do you think?
Maybe, yeah. One thing I was going to ask you, because I know you're a big Ty Emberson fan, and that when you say Ty Emberson watched, maybe you were really on watch. I definitely
was holding out for like a 5-year contract extension, and we only got 1 year.
I got the memo from you, like asking me if I wanted to participate in Ty Emberson watch, and I just put all of those in my spam, so I never saw
like
them. So.
Going over here. We're called Ty Ember stands. And
well, you are, yes. Yeah. I like Ty, by the way, but I would not consider myself a Ty Ember stand, though.
He's a good defender.
He is a good defender.
He plays good defense.
He was on a disastrous Sharks team. He was a bright spot last year. I actually, in terms of Ty Ember stand voting, I actually voted Ty Emberson as my Sharks Rookie of the Year.
Whoa.
And Henry Thrun was the popular choice. And I like Henry a lot, but Henry definitely, I think that obviously it's Wade because Emberson's a little bit older, more experienced, I think, overall, right? But I think he's a year older. But I thought that in the sample size of Emberson's games, granted, there was only 30 of them because of various injuries and that sort of thing, that he was better than Henry in similar kind of sample size. Not that I was impressed by Henry, and I've said this many times, just in terms of just like Eklund, very, very tough situation to grow into, to develop in. And I thought that both of them did good jobs of kind of keeping their heads focused on the prize and getting better as players, even as the red lights were flashing behind them. And I think they both did a very good job of that. And so anyway, I'm a big Henry Thrun fan too, but I gave Ty my vote for that because I thought Ty was better. So in terms of does he end up as a top 4 Sharks defenseman, I want to ask you that, because if you look at the Sharks right now, there's really 3 guys that are healthy and established, and you feel good that they're going to play in your every night pretty much for you. I think that's Ferraro, Wallman, and Ruda.
Yeah,
I think past that, the Sharks defense still has a lot of question marks. We don't know what Vlasic's gonna give you. Is he gonna be more like last year, where he was in and out and that seemed
Sure.
fine? Or is he going to be maybe get back to what he was doing 2022-23, which was slightly better and gets you in the lineup more? And Matt Benning obviously was pretty good in 2022-23 and was a top 4 defenseman for, granted, not a good Sharks team, but he's coming off of a hip injury. So we really don't know exactly what he's going to offer. Sharks will know, I guess, but we don't know what exactly he's going to offer the Sharks going into this coming season. And so anyway, where do you see Emberson in all this?
Yeah, I think he comes in on the third pairing most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Ruta and Benning are healthy, that they're two vets that have proven success as right shot D in the league. I think they kind of get the not first pass, but the first like couple months as the top 4 if they're both healthy, and then adjust if needed, or tinker as nights go on and see where Emberson kind of fits. But for the beginning of the year, I think him being the youngest, one of the younger ones, I think he kind of slots there, and I think that's a good.
Do you think
spot
he
for
takes
him.
it though? I mean, a top 4 spot. But
I don't think he's that good. Like I like Ty Emberson.
The limits,
like
the limits of this Ty Ember stand have been revealed.
That was mean. I mean, he could be, but there was actually a thing that was put out. Speaking of Calder Trophy voting, that at some point during the year, like Ty Emberson's wins above replacement comparatively to his team was better than Connor Bedard's, and it was on like Dom's Athletics wins above replacement. And I remember retweeting it, being like, "You guys heard it here first. Ty Emberson Calder Trophy winner," just because his defensive impacts were actually pretty good.
Sure. He's the
whatever you care about that.
He's the underrated Brock Faber. Sure.
Exactly. No, there was also games when I watched Ty a few times, and I was like, he just kind of threw the puck away a lot and like fumbled a lot with his handles, and my Ty Ember standing kind of backed off a little bit. But
right.
They very clearly see a lot in him. Not a lot, but they cleaned him off waivers. They qualified him. They signed him to this deal. They see a lot there, I think, and they can sign somebody to take his spot.
Because there are guys that they traded draft picks for, like Kalen Addison, right, that they didn't bring back. And I agree with that. I think that Ty, again, even though just 30 games, was definitely better than Kalen Addison. I did want to, you asked me a question to begin all this, that is sort of the Sharks not adding a defenseman. Maybe that is a vote of confidence for an Emberson or maybe a Shakir Mukhamadullin or a Henry Thrun, one of the younger defensemen. I don't know. It's possible. But I will say that the Sharks have also made miscalculations, I think, in recent years of their talent, if we're being frank about it. And I will give Mike Grier a pass on this, that signing a veteran defenseman is always hard in terms of just the market. There's so few of them. We saw in the free agency market this time that they went really fast, or they went for a very long number of years, that the Sharks didn't seem like they wanted to go that far. Mike Grier was pretty clear before free agency that he didn't want to go more than 4 years, 5 maybe. And I think a number of the defensemen did go for longer than that. Brady Shea went for 7. I think Sean Walker went for 5.
Yeah.
I can't remember everybody who's sort of a clear top 4 guy on the Sharks that went in free agency, but they went fast though. Basically, Brett Pesce, right?
Zadorov, I think, went 5 years too.
Yeah, Zadorov went, and it could have been an AAV thing. And also, too, the other part of the equation too is there's so few kind of legit top 4 defensemen out there in free agency. And also, too, do they want to come to San Jose? Do they want to come to a last place team with Tyler Toffoli? I think the Sharks got lucky, kind of a unique set of circumstances. Tyler basically getting traded so much over the last couple of years really, I think, was a big part of it. If Vancouver had kept on to Tyler Toffoli, because I think that's who the Kings traded Toffoli to a few years ago when Tyler Toffoli first started moving around. If Vancouver had kept Tyler Toffoli over the years, instead of sending him on his odyssey to Calgary, to Montreal, to New Jersey and all this stuff, right? Maybe Tyler Toffoli wouldn't end up here because he wouldn't feel like he needs a no movement clause from a bad team basically to stay. We don't know. I don't know that. But anyway, though, so it's not the easiest sell, San Jose, for sure. And so I'm not killing Mike for not getting one of those guys. But I will say, though, that they might regret not getting somebody, even if that somebody is kind of a veteran, considered over the hill type.
Sure.
that I do think that they've sniffed around on veteran defensemen. I've reported that. I mentioned that. I think I mentioned it in the last podcast, but they haven't brought anybody in. So maybe they won't do that. I don't know. But maybe they will regret that though, not putting somebody else in there.
Yeah.
The flip side of it though is that maybe you're right, and that, or not that you're right, but what you suggest could be right, that they know what they've got in Mukmud, who I'm a big fan of Mukhamadullin, as you guys know,
Yeah.
that maybe he can step in and be a solid puck moving middle pairing guy. Obviously,
Future
he'll make some
Calder
mistakes.
winner. Yeah.
Future Calder winner, and he can step in and do that immediately. Or Henry Thrun. Henry Thrun graduated from the school of Hard Knocks this past season, and so maybe he's ready for more, or maybe even Emberson, right? And so maybe they feel pretty good about that trio, that one of those guys can kind of fill in and play middle pairing minutes and do it responsibly. So we'll see.
I think they play most nights. I think they play probably two of the Thrun, Emberson, Mukhamadullin. I think then one guy sits, and depending on injuries, and you have a guy like Vlasic or Ruta or somebody sitting out with them. So like one vet, one young guy scratched, and kind of rotate in to see what works until injuries happen or trades or what have you. I think that makes a lot of sense because right now they have about 8D that are NHL caliber, I'd say.
Right.
So that'd be
that including Mukhamadullin?
Yeah, I think that's including Mukhamadullin. Okay. So it's like Ferraro, Wallman, Ruta, Benning, Emberson, Thrun, Mukhamadullin, and Vlasic. I think that's everybody. Now that we've traded Burrows and McDonald's gone and Addison's gone, I think.
Yeah, I still feel like they could use one more, but
maybe. Yeah, and last year we had like
months.
10, and you know what happened to that. It's like
right, and maybe they'll pick up an Emberson type off of waivers, right?
Remember when we signed Marcus Nunavara and then never played a game with Marcus Nunavara?
Well, that's the hip thing, right? And so it doesn't sound like Benning's injury is as serious as Nunavara's hip injury, but hip is, I mean, I'm no doctor. You can say more about that, but when you hear hip injury in hockey, it's scary though. It's not right. Knee, you feel better about knee than you do about hip, right?
100%. Yeah, it's not like there's a lot less track record of success with hip injuries, depending on the injury, than there is with knee. Knee, it's like almost everybody gets a knee injury. It feels like not everybody, but a lot of people.
Right nowadays, it's. I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but like Tommy John in baseball pitchers, right? Like everybody gets that. It's now it's like par for. If you don't get Tommy John as a pitcher, it's like you're doing something wrong. You're not throwing hard enough or something.
You're tearing it up. Ligaments are soft anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But so I don't know. I'm not really sure what Benning can. So maybe the Sharks know that too. That's some inside. If Matt Benning is completely healthy and he's completely the Matt Benning that he was in 2022-23, then I feel okay with him in your top four. He's not ideally a top four guy. I think on a good team like the Predators, his previous team, a playoff team, that he is ideally a bottom pairing guy, but he's a guy that can play those middle pairing minutes and do okay at it. And so that's okay, because again, you're not necessarily going to trade for Miro Heiskanen. You're not going to sign Brady Shea, those kind of guys, right? So you'll do okay if Matt Benning is completely healthy, but I just don't know. Maybe they know. So maybe that's part of their sort of, well, we don't need to give Sean Walker 5 years. We don't need to give so-and-so this much AAV. Could be that.
Yeah. Well, eventually we have to get a right shot D-man that is young and offensive leaning, I think.
Oh, yeah, that actually reminds me. I did want to say, people ask me about, like, say, Adam Boquist, for example, who signed, I think, in Florida. And I don't think the Sharks really pursued guys like that. I know with Boquist, I don't think that they pursued him at all. So that's like the type that I understand that's like your Philip Zadina types, right? Like high draft pick, theoretically high upside, right? But like I said, my impression is that if the Sharks bring somebody in, it's more likely to be like a veteran guy. Who knows? Things can happen, right? Maybe some younger guy is willing to just give some sweetheart deal to the Sharks. But like I was also asked about Shillington too. I don't know if the Sharks have I checked on that? I think I checked on that a week ago. And that wasn't the case a week ago. I haven't checked since then because it just didn't seem like there was any any significant interest there from the Sharks for a Shillington type. And so that's still suggests to me.
He hasn't signed in Calgary yet, Shillington?
No, though I think Shilton wanted a little more money, a little more term, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of why I mentioned if Shillington is going to give you a sweetheart deal, Boquist signed in Florida for 1 year for the minimum. So that's as sweetheart as you can do, right? For a team. So the Sharks didn't sound like they were matching that. So yeah, I'm sure there's other guys out there. I don't know if they ever were in on Brandstrom. I know he signed in Colorado, but just a couple of guys. I know that they weren't in Shillington about a week ago. Boquist, I don't believe they were ever in either, and he signed a couple of days ago. And so that type of guy, I understand why fans want that because it just the grass is always greener, just the lure of that high pick, right?
We can fix him.
Right? Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. So and Shillington has had good years too in the league too, so I don't want to take that away from Shillington. But yeah, I don't think that's what they're looking for. I think that they're looking again a little more veteran, maybe less upside, maybe. But yeah, so just wanted to mention that because you mentioned younger defensemen.
Yeah, I just meant eventually they also have to draft one, right?
Right.
Tried with Havlat and Larocque, and this year they pick up Roberts and Miskey as right shot D, but it doesn't feel like they've got that like pegged for a top 4 role guy just yet.
Yeah.
Maybe next year.
Yep.
Okay. We have one more story before we get to the Jonathan Becher interview, and it's about the Barracuda. It's actually about your story that you released about the Barracuda. But we've had a lot of people mention, and this is not the first time we've mentioned it.
Right. That's why I wanted to plug my story.
Yeah. This is like, I don't know, the 10th time that people have mentioned it to us that they're, like last year we released the Martin Kaut episode, basically, where we tried to do a dive into what is going on with the Barracuda. And then this year, Nathan Todd had left for the KHL.
We also talked with, around the AHL All-Star break, we talked with Patrick Williams and asked him about how he saw the Barracuda team, like if it really was a playoff team. Because obviously the Barracuda haven't made the playoffs in a while. But again, I don't know if the team, and it's based on what Patrick Williams said, and I trust Patrick Williams because he watches the entire league, that the Barracuda team last year wasn't necessarily good enough for the playoffs.
Yeah. And so then Nathan Todd got let go.
Well,
I guess the way to put it,
he agreed to terminate the contract, so he
let go in a they both let each other go so he could get more money in the AHL.
Yeah.
And I had tweeted out that I was upset because it felt like Nathan Todd wasn't earning enough in the AHL to kind of support his play there, and it felt like maybe they could get a couple more vets if they paid their two-way contract, the AHL portion of it, a little bit more money. And it seems like maybe they did that this year with a couple guys they signed.
Right. And they did that with Andrew Podorowski. And Podorowski led the AHL in points in 2021 and 2021-22, I think. He had 101 points actually that year under Ryan Warsofsky with the Chicago Wolves, and they won the Calder Cup that year. But anyway, though, Podorowski's contract, it's NHL veterans minimum, basically, if he's in NHL. But the AHL, though, it's a very high guarantee. It's, I think, $475,000 in the first year and $500,000 the second year. And just to put that in perspective, Nathan Todd actually signed a 2-year contract with the Sharks last summer. And it was also in the NHL, it's a minimum, veterans minimum. But in the AHL, it was just for $200,000.
Yep.
And so I guess, you mentioned your tweet. Like, I would ask you, like, were the Sharks supposed to rip up Nathan Todd's contract?
No. I also put it,
right?
No, and I put that in the tweet too, that it's actually on Todd's agent, like that he didn't get a better deal in the AHL.
I don't even know if I would put it on his agent, because Nathan Todd, if you look at his track record before,
it's both of them,
his pretty good season, right? Like he had a very unusual kind of rise, and with his credit to Nathan Todd, he played a lot of, I think he may have played more ECAHL games than AHL games before he signed with the Sharks.
Yeah.
Last season. And I'm not saying that your overall point wasn't right. Like, I got to look back in the last offseason, and maybe they didn't offer like the top of the market AHL free agents a high enough guarantee. they may not have done that because I think they had to sub. Because Nathan Todd, I don't think that was like a first day signing. That might have been like a second, third, or whatever day signing, right?
Yeah.
And so they missed out in theory on sort of the big targets. And anyway, I think another part I want to mention in my article, and I think people don't take this in account enough when they talk about, oh, this guy left the Barracuda. Oh, they must hate it here in San Jose, right? Is that in every AHL game, there's a rule called the AHL Veterans. Actually, let me get the name right since I'm going to cite it here. So I want to make sure I have the. You can look it up on AHL.com or on Puckpedia or any of it. It's called the AHL Development Rule. And basically, the rule is designed to prioritize the development of younger players, and it allows the team to dress only 5 veteran skaters a game. And veteran equates to 320 plus AHL, NHL, or European Elite League games.
Yep.
Okay,
so kind of men's league, basically.
Right. And Nathan Todd, funny enough, doesn't count for that because ECHL doesn't count for that calculation. So that's something that I learned. I didn't know that, but I made sure to learn for or look up for my article. Sure. And so anyway, I'm going to talk about another guy who left, Cole Castles, right? So he's the guy that left, and there's the same old like, oh my God, they hate it here, whatever, right? That sort of thing, right? But okay. Let's look at this objectively, right? And we talked with Patrick Williams about this. There's so much turnover every year in the AHL. A big part of it is this rule. So if you're a veteran guy, right, like it doesn't say that you can only sign 5 veteran guys. You can have as many as you want on a team, I think. I don't think there's any roster limits in AHL, but it means that only 5 of them can play. So if you sign with a team, then you got to feel like, okay, I'm going to play. I'm not going to get scratched, or why would I come here, right? And so a guy like precisely Cole Castles, the center, right? I think that it's not that you lost Cole Castles. It's more like you upgraded, on no disrespect to Cole Castles, but you upgraded from Cole Castles. You upgraded with Andrew Podorowski over Cole Castles. I think that's the right way to look at it because you have these 5 spots. And these players know, okay, that chances are I'm going to play. And so anyway, right now for the Barracuda, they're main kind of veteran guys right now, right? And like I said, you can have more guys like this on your roster, but the actual guys who are likely to play, right? Podorowski, obviously, right? He slots and he should be a true number 1 center for the Barracuda, which I'm not sure the Barracuda have actually had for a long time. I'm going to look into that, but I'm not sure if they've had a guy that you really regard as a true number 1. I think Augustino was more of a winger. If I could be wrong, maybe Augustino counted, but still though, he is, like I said, he led the AHL in scoring 2 years ago. Great in the room, from what I understand. If you read the article, I talked with a couple of AHL executives. They are glowing about him. Sure. And guys that are not with the Barracuda, by the way, I always like to mention that because again, it's I think fairly objective, and so kind of like guys are glowing. Myself in the media, we're glowing over the Sharks signing Tyler Toffoli. I see Paul Dorowski, sounds like similar kind of guy, or not the same kind of guy, but similar kind of impact, right in the room, that sort of thing, right? So they also signed Lucas Carlson, who has scored 30, a defenseman who scored a combined, I think, 35 goals the last 2 years. Yep. And granted, the Barracuda had a Gavlanka last year as he left midseason. But anyway, though, so that's another excellent signing. And then Jimmy Schultz. And Jimmy Schultz is a defensive defenseman who has been a top defensive defenseman for the Coachella Valley Firebirds the last couple of years. Coachella Valley Firebirds have made it to the Calder Cup final for 2 straight seasons. He's a guy that plays 20-plus minutes a night. And that, I'm pretty sure, the Barracuda haven't had a very, very good defensive shutdown defenseman in quite a while, in my memory. I think they've been missing that because last year, for example, they had Gavlanka, they had Mukhamadullin, but they didn't necessarily have a number 1 kind of shutdown defenseman. And so it sounds like that they have that with the Jimmy Schultz. So anyway, the veterans that I count though is, and again, I know this might be like too in the details, too in the weeds, and this is why I'm not sure how many of you are still listening to this. But this is the truth, though, of when you criticize the Barracuda. Like, I think you need to be aware of these. You have to know
And
these
they're
things.
paying, but they are paying them more. I want to put that out
Right.
there.
That's a very good point. Yeah, Polarowski, Lucas Carlson. I think his AAV and, or I'm sorry, his AHL contract is 450,
Mhm.
450, and then 475 for the second year. So we have very high amount. But anyway, Podorowski, Justin Bailey, Scott Sabrin, and Carlson. Those are sort of your vets.
Sure.
Justin Bailey, yeah. Just so I assume Justin Bailey. We don't know, but I assume Justin Bailey is with the Cuda next year because the Sharks are a bit deeper. So anyway, given that, right, and Jimmy Schultz actually doesn't count because there's one more detail. There's something called a veterans exemption, where if you're between 260 and 320 high level games, and he is at 291, and they count this. This is the count at before the season. That's what's
Sure.
counted. Then he's technically a veterans exemption, which every team gets one of each game.
Okay. So you can get 6 total, basically.
Yeah. So in a way, you can get 6 veterans, right? And so there is, in theory, one more spot, a
Mhm.
regular lineup spot for somebody. So maybe Joe will assign somebody else. Giovanni Smith, he would fit under this number too
Yep.
if he came down and he was one of your top 5 kind of players. I don't know if he would be. So maybe they'll sign somebody, but I just think that these kind of details. And so anyway, read the article. I know I've been talking a long time
Yeah.
about these sort of detail kind of rules, but I think it's illuminating though, because it makes sort of decisions make more sense. So it's not as simple as, again, losing Cole Cassos. It's about, can you upgrade on Cole Cassos? Or even Nathan Todd, right? Even though Nathan Todd doesn't count as a veteran, right? It's not as simple as losing Nathan Todd. And Grant, the article mentions that Nathan Todd's going to make 3 times more his Barracuda salary in the KHL. So, if anything, the Sharks can be applauded for letting him go instead of holding him to his contract, right?
Yeah.
But also too, it's not as simple as just losing Nathan Todd. But it's like, okay, can you, in your finite number of spots, can you have somebody better than him in there?
Mhm.
And in this case, it could be a spot for a Gushin, for a Bordelot. Obviously, you hope that they're in the NHL, but they may not be, right? And so, anyway, so it's. I think I just think the reason why I spent 1,000 words on this article, and I also put it behind the paywall, is I think it's a topic that is under sort of reported when people are belly aching about John McCarthy, about Joe Will, about the Barracuda, et cetera,
Sure.
that they are these very, very strict roster rules that Mike Grier doesn't have to deal with in the NHL, that are not necessarily easy to understand, that but need to be understood if you're going to properly criticize what the Barracuda have done. And I'm going to stop talking for now. There's one more thing that I will criticize the Barracuda on, but I'm going to let you jump in if you have anything to say before I finish up.
I think it's just that, yeah, they couldn't tear up Nathan Todd's contract. I meant going forward, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not going to get the guy the NHL time and the NHL paycheck, because they get a significant amount more money if they come up to the NHL, and Todd never got called up,
Right. And he
then
arguably deserves a shot for sure.
then you should pay them the 450, 400, especially because they live in the Bay Area. Like
Right.
I think that's the big key. And we looked back through a lot of the other guys that left, and their AHL salaries were not high either, and they were low in San Jose. Like, I
Some
don't
of
know,
them
low
were.
comparatively, but low, like around that 200 to 300 mark instead of the 400 to 450 mark.
Right. I think
So
Augustino's might have been a little lower than you would think.
sure,
I think I mentioned Jonah Gadjevich before, but then there were guys that did have actually high 2 ways that didn't really
sure,
end up in AHL, like Evgeny Svechnikov.
sure.
And I know he was over 400,000, and maybe they earmarked him for the AHL at first, but the Sharks team had injuries or whatever, so he ended up with the Sharks the
Mhm.
entire season. So I don't know. I had to look into that to be sure if that is accurate. That's sort of a regular sort of problem with
Well,
them. But
they
either way, though,
seem to
they're
have done
addressing it.
better. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they're
seem to have done
definitely
better.
they're definitely addressing it here, though. I'm just curious about Augustino because I know he is somebody that.
I think VL's was also low.
No, VL's was actually really high, but that's a Doug Wilson contract. VL's was really high for a guy that.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. It was really high. It was.
The world is a lot tougher without cap friendly. I will say that.
Well, Puppy still has the same
I know.
stuff, but VL's I think was like double Jonah Gadjevich's, which like maybe similar role in the AHL, or
Oh yeah,
actually
it was probably
Gadjevich is a bit more of
Gadjic.
a scorer.
Yeah.
But Gadjevich was low. But Vils was pretty high for the player he was. Augustino's for the Sharks when he was with the Sharks was 300 and 325, which is arguably a little low. I will say that Augustino just signed a contract with Utah for a lower guarantee than the Sharks gave him. So I do want to mention that.
Yeah.
But maybe, like you said, though, kind of blowing through a little higher than everybody, like being well above everybody when you're in the Bay Area, will stem a few complaints. I will definitely give you that.
We still have not gotten a goalie either. That's the other thing.
Yes, so that was that. That's going to be my one critique. That
Yeah.
And this is a situation where they know what they've got in Krona and Romanov more than I do. They watch him over the summer, they watch him over Dev Camp, et cetera, et cetera. But man, if they go into the season without a number 3 again, or at least a reliable number 3, and they had Makaniemi, but he obviously was injury prone, that's another just kind of rolling the dice, and you're kind of arguably possibly wasting kind of the investments that you made, impressive investments that you've made on the high end of the Barracuda lineup, and Podorowski and Carlson and Schultz. Those are legitimately impressive AHL signings. You've got arguable number 1 center in Podorowski. Lucas Carlson, I'm not sure defensively how great he is, but in terms of offensive production, he is a number 1 AHL defenseman. Jimmy Schultz is a number 1 kind of shutdown defenseman, right, in that range of a player, right? So these are very, very impressive AHL signings. If Mike Grier pulled that off in an NHL level, number 1 center, a number 1 defenseman, and a number 1 shutdown defenseman, that'd be super impressive, right?
Yep.
And so I'm gonna give Joe credit for that part of it, but they need a goalie though. They need somebody reliable, or even in case Blackwood or Vanchek get hurt, you need somebody that you feel good about playing a few games for you in the NHL level or backing up. And so, some of the top goalies have gone already. July 1st has gone. The top number 3 goalies have gone already, but there's still some guys out there. And so hopefully they find the right guy. And hey, you know what? Maybe they try to sign somebody on July 1st and they lost them. That happens too a lot, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to give somebody mediocre too much money, but it's still, let's just say it's still, to me, a clear need. Even if you feel really good about Romanov and Krona, that, again, injuries to Blackwood or Vanacek, you want somebody more reliable in there last year. Well, I watched Krona again. That's last year, but Krona was not ready for NHL last year. No. Romanov was good in his one game, but it's only one game. I doubt that he would have been ready for too much time in NHL too last year. So so hopefully they get somebody there.
They both Blackwood and Vanacek also UFAs after this year as well.
I think they're both UFAs, and they're also they're guys that historically, have had it, especially Blackwood, right? And then Vanacek maybe more last season, but so these aren't exactly guys that played 50, 60 games a year every year for the last 4 years.
You got to get a number 3. There's got to be somebody.
So. I think so. You got to get a body in there.
So we'll see how it plays out in the next couple. And signings still happen. It's only July.
Right. It's still a couple months away. So I'm just mentioning it because it hasn't happened, and I hope that it doesn't happen. Right? Yeah, like we thought it would happen. Mike Grier said that they want to get a number 3 goalie. So I don't know if he's changed his mind or just the guys that they wanted, the top of the market, they couldn't get them, which is possible. So, but anyway, read my story. Did Barracuda add enough to make the playoffs?
I love it. Stick around. We have Jonathan Becher after this interview, or after this segment. He's going to talk all about the Celebrini effect and a whole bunch of other things. And that's going to do it for this week, because we don't really have that much news other than the Celebrini ELC.
I think that's enough news, isn't it?
That's true. That's probably all we need. We'll talk about it next week as well, probably. We're gonna
and a week after that.
We're gonna revise. Maybe I think one show we should have like a full depth chart, roster discussion mid-off season kind of thing, where it's like you're just pulling your hair out, being like, all right, this guy's gonna pencil in at 3C. We're gonna do that one of these shows.
Well, I say that every year every episode. We start with a picture of a live turkey, and then we go to a cooked turkey, and then we stretch it out. Like for to represent Macklin Celebrini, we have a different representation of a turkey. So it goes from a nice cooked turkey, and then we stretch it out. We have turkey sandwiches, we have turkey
Yeah,
salad.
exactly. We
We have
gotta. It's the leftovers. We gotta get something in there.
we gotta stretch out that Macklin Celebrini turkey meat all the way to training camp.
I love it. All right, guys. I hope you all have a good week. Stick around. Bye.
Welcome. We have a special guest today. He is the president of the Shark Sports Entertainment, Jonathan Becher, and he joined the organization in 2018, but he's been a lifelong Sharks fan. So excited to talk to you, Jonathan. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. I'm my one half excited, one half worried about what questions you might be asking me. I'm just kidding.
Well, I'm going to start with a hard-hitting one then, all right? Because at the San Jose Hockey Now podcast, we're all about the hard-hitting questions. How mad were you that the Sharks didn't draft Andre Becker?
It's funny. I actually built a draft card. I gave it to the scouts, and for whatever reason, they didn't think he was the right guy to scout. But it would have been a good story.
What would his number, or what would your number have been if you played with the Sharks?
Sadly, my number has been retired. I'm number 12.
Oh no. Well, you can wear 14 then.
14 then, and done the original Patrick number or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect.
Exactly. Well, Jonathan, the future is bright for the Sharks, but we do have to go back and let's talk about how we got here. And it's July 2021. The Sharks have missed the playoffs for a second straight season, and rebuild, as you recall, is a dirty word when it comes up in press conferences, right? The R word discussion was a discussion for a good 4 years here. And you said back in July 2021 that it'd be hard for me to sell a 3-year season ticket plan to somebody that says, we plan not to be good for the next 3 to 4 years. It just doesn't feel right to me, and I think it would be hard in this market. And then you mentioned from owner Hasso Plattner's perspective, same interview. I don't want to speak on behalf of the boss, but I'm confident that he would say he expects us to make the playoffs. Yep. So before we get into the good stuff and the sunshine and rainbows, the question is, what changed the direction of the Sharks, where over the past year especially, it seems like the organization has really embraced the rebuild?
Yeah. So I think context is important. If we go back to that time that we had that conversation, we were either just coming out of the pandemic or maybe on the outside of seeing that we could see the end of the pandemic. Until June of 2022, we still had, I think what most would say is a pretty impressive core players between, Couture, Hurdle, Meyer, Burns, Carlson. I don't mean to leave anybody out, but that's a team that you look at and say, it probably could be and should be in playoff contention. Maybe it's a couple of players around the edges. So if you look at where we were, it's fair to say there was still a chance to make that a playoff team. And clearly we weren't, and we didn't. And so you can say we failed to live up to our potential for what we were there right now. But, with a flat cap, it became a lot more difficult to trade away players, a lot more difficult to bring players in we want. We were in a very different situation. And so that forced us to go back and say, well, the cap is finally starting to go up. You saw that it went up $4 million. Now it's accelerating a bit more as well. This gives us more flexibility than we had in the previous 3 years when it's essentially flat. We can now change the strategy. And so as we went out and talked to, I don't remember the number anymore, maybe it was 20 different GM candidates and sort of interviewed them, there were different patterns emerging. There were those that wanted to double down on the core, and there were those that thought that we could rebuild a new core. And ultimately, when we hired Mike, clearly he was more on the rebuild a new core, and we executed on that strategy. And we can talk about that strategy, but I think at this point, it's been well hashed as to what we're doing.
Right. I think it's pretty clear right now, but it seems like, and you tell me if this is an accurate portrayal, that Hasso Plattner's perspective matters a whole lot, of course, but also may have changed. Was he more against the rebuild, say, before 2022, and did he have to kind of change his mind about it?
I think we all collectively were hesitant to do that. But at post 2022, there was a different collection of voices, some newer voices that were stronger than it would before. But yes, ultimately, Hasso is the owner of the franchise. And unless he supports a direction, we're not going in that direction.
And so what, I guess, got him over the top to that direction? Was it kind of missing the playoffs again in 2022, and there's that transition from Doug Wilson to Joe Will. Now you're looking for a new GM. Did Mike Grier convince you in some sort of way that this was the way to go? Just how did that kind of come about, that around that summer, it does seem like you guys kind of flipped your philosophy?
Yeah, Sheng, I think it's all of that. It's the cap going up, so we had more flexibility. It's a new GM with a different vision of where we're going to go. It's a different players on the horizon. It's a change in philosophy that, well, we know that we probably are not going to be trading away draft picks anymore. So I don't think there's any one thing you can point of. It's just a collection of those that hit critical mass, and it was clear it was time to go in a different direction.
Is it fair to say then that, two decisions that kind of about the same player kind of speak to that shift in attitude? In March 2022, the Sharks re-signed Tomas Hertl for 8 years. Yep. That's not a rebuild move. Correct. 2 years later, the Sharks traded him. You mentioned the cap and that sort of thing. The Sharks traded him to the Vegas Golden Knights. And so is that a fair kind of perspective, that there was a big shift from March 2022 kind of to that summer, and obviously 2024 when proof was in the pudding that you guys?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. As when we signed Hertl for the extension, we thought there was still a way to build a playoff team around him and the other players that we still had. 2 years later, by then, when we actually traded Karlsson, and what I think many of you, including maybe you, Sheng, originally said was an untradeable contract.
It was.
Karlsson proved that a little different by himself. Yeah.
But that's my point. There were so many different factors that if you go back a year ago, I don't think any of us could have predicted this different situation the world and we would be in.
So I guess if we're looking at it then, like in terms of just in a way that in terms of what took you guys maybe so long to be open about a rebuild and to declare it, was you guys had these players. They obviously had some talent, even though they had ups and downs, obviously, like Eric did with San Jose. And so it was almost like this is the kind of the best situation that we have right now. Like, you can't move these contracts. You're not going to get anything for them. And if you're just retaining a huge amount, you're just kind of putting yourself in a hole for a long time. So it's sort of just dealing with the cards that you were dealt almost, maybe.
I think that's fair characterization, Sheng. At each point, you make a decision based on the facts you have at that point and saying what's the best we can do for the franchise and for the fans. And that year, it was still try to push to make the playoffs, and Hertl would have been a key component of that.
Mm. And you mentioned Hasso Plattner a second ago, but I guess recently he was spotted at the prospect scrimmage, and you had told Corey Masisak in a Hasso Plattner profile that he had done, that you can actually read on San Jose Hockey Now, to plug San Jose Hockey Now, that he's been at more Sharks games over the past year or so. Do you think there's an increasing level of involvement from Hasso with the Sharks to be more as a fan, or is he kind of more of hockey operations management at this point?
Yeah, I think you guys have done him a disservice by saying he's not around a lot, because he's around a ton. He's just not a guy who looks for the spotlight. I didn't track how many games he went to last year. That's not a KPI we have, but I would say it was, I don't know, a dozen, maybe 14, something like that. Not a fair number of the home games. He wasn't just at the prospect scrimmage game that you saw, but he was at development camp as well. And so I think there's a lot of times that you would say he's not around, but we know he's around. You just don't necessarily. And he's not a pound on his chest, be in the spotlight kind of guy. So you just don't know.
Yeah, well, I want to speak for myself and my media cohorts there. Like I mentioned in the story with Corey, that it's out there that he's around more, but I think a lot of it is a fan perception thing, right? And I get that Hasso may not want to do a lot of interviews. He's not Mark Cuban, obviously, right? He's not front and center with the team, but a perception begins though, right? Because you don't see a lot of pictures of him. You don't have any interviews with him about the Sharks in maybe a decade or so. So I do want to put that out there, that I don't know if it's so much myself saying he's not around, because like I said, I've mentioned a few times that I haven't seen him, but I'm told that he's been around more these past couple of years. That I think it's more a fan perception, and that it would be, I would say, since you're on the show now, that I would put it to you that it would be good, I think, for the fans to hear from him at some point.
I hear you. I think that's ultimately his decision whether he wants to do it or not.
Of course. So let's talk about the good news. It's time for the good vibes.
Sure.
What are the okay? So, what are the different areas that you've seen the Macklin Celebrini effect since the San Jose Sharks won the draft lottery, drafted Macklin first overall? Just anything that you can mention that you think is interesting over the past couple months in terms of Macklin.
You mean other than the fact that the song "Return of the Mac" has been on the radio
Perfect.
like 10 times more than it was until that point?
That's a good one.
Well, look, come on. So let's start with sort of the obvious part, which is there's just a lot more buzz. We're seeing more interest from what I would call the casual NorCal hockey fan, not those that are diehards, etc. We're seeing more interest from the national media. We've gotten more inbound requests from our non-beat reporters, including you guys as well. Frankly, fans in other markets are paying more attention to what's happening here in San Jose than they did a year ago, unless they were paying attention for negative reasons a year ago, which they may have. You can see it in lots of numbers. The prospect scrimmage that you mentioned had roughly 3,300 fans there in attendance. That's not a ticket drop number. That was people in the building. Despite the fact that event was on a holiday day, July 4th, right? Despite the fact it was a paid event. And last year, you may remember, it was a free event.
Yep.
So 50% or so increase in attendance, despite, bad scheduling day, and you had to pay for it as well. The stream itself had more than 23,000 people on it. And if that number doesn't astonish you, I'll put it in context. That's not much less than an average professional hockey Sharks game. So you pick a random Tuesday or Thursday against, Winnipeg or Buffalo, they're going to be not much more than 23,000. So that's a heck of a lot of interest. What else? Oh, Saturday. So the day that we announced that he had signed his ELC was a record merchandise sales day for a non-game day. So for an off season, and something like 80% of the merch we sold was his merch, but we sold other merch as well.
That's like an entire time with the Sharks, or going back?
I only have records going back from when I've been here 7 years, so I don't know.
Fair enough.
But yes, but I'm not counting Stanley Cup games because, of course, that's during the season. I'm talking about off-season kind of time frame.
Sure.
And you may have seen, because I think I tweeted it out or X'd it out, or what the appropriate phrase is these days, that we sold all our Teal Celebrini stuff. So we had to pause and make more before we could reload and sell more of that as well. And also, I don't know if I said, there was a spike in individual game sales. If you do same day last year, which I don't know if it's a fair comparison, but it's the only comparison I know how to do, it was almost double the day of the previous year for a couple of days after we announced it. And most of the sales on that day were for the home opener or the game in October against Bedard. So there you go.
Interesting. Seeing fans are following it very closely in terms of the young prospects, it seems like, because the Bedard effect, the Celebrini effect, and going head on head, that seems like a good one to go to for sure.
Unrelated to us, the league has been saying for years that we're getting younger, but the superstars are still been those that are sort of the 30-year-old plus. It really feels like we're on the cusp of all the attention going to the under 25s at this point.
And you mentioned the home opener getting so much interest. So where is that? Like, is that sold out now? What can you say about that? Or even the Bedard game?
Yeah, so none of them are all tickets issued at this point. There are tons of games, including the homeowner, the first and the second. There's 2 Bedard games this year, as you may recall, that are doing really well. The Halloween game is for, I guess, fun reasons, is selling very well. Obviously, the Jumbo Joe retirement 19 game is actually the closest to sold out. I think it's above 85%. It might even be by 90%. I didn't check yet this morning. And the first ever New Year's game is selling quite well also.
If you were to estimate that home opener versus last year's home opener at same day, like what would the estimate be? How many more tickets have sold because
we're probably
interest?
20% ahead pace wise.
Wow.
It's Sheng, it's tough. I mean, I can do year over year comparison, and I have, which is why I knew that number. But it's also got to pause and say, we're 91 days, I think, away from there. So it's still a long way away. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in the next 90.
Right. I think you had mentioned that you can't really talk about sort of season tickets sold, that sort of thing, until you want to get closer to September, right? Before you want to talk about that kind of impact that Macklin may have had on that.
Yeah, I did say that to you, 10 days ago,
Yep.
12 days ago? I've got maybe an update, which I'll share, because things have moved much faster than at least I expected them to move. So maybe I was too cautious then. I don't know. We'll see. But just context-wise, if you just care about seasons, which I encourage you not just to care about, but that is a big part of it. Seasons have three components. They're the people who renew, right? There are then people who expand. So you had 2 tickets, you decide to go to 4, or 4, you decide to go to 6, and then new.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do this right, you want the sum of renew plus expand plus new to be more than 100%, because then you're growing your season ticket base.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I have told you on a number of occasions, and I've told others as well, is an average renewal campaign. You're doing good, but it's about average is 85%. And so the other 15% has to come from either expansions or news to get back to 100. Of course, you want to go a little bit further than that. If you're very good, then your renewals are in the high 80%. So when we last talked, we were at good. We're at very good now. And the question is, will we get to excellent just on the renew? The other thing I can tell you is we're 90 days to go, and renew plus expand plus new is already well above 100. So we're already in the right territory.
Okay, that's great. I mean, it must have been very tough, right, over the last couple of years, just the arena not being what it was, just that the pop, right, not being there.
Yeah, and look, we're not going to solve this all in 1 year. This is not me suggesting that we're back to the Stanley Cup run years where virtually every night is 15 to 16,000 people in the building. But I think you saw, I don't know, a dozen nights or days and nights last year where it felt like the old tank. And I think we'll significantly expand that. It probably won't be all 41, but we'll get deeper into those. There'll still be the odd Tuesday where it'll feel a little emptier than we'd like.
I guess since we're talking about just how tough was it for you as a fan, and even for Hasso as a fan himself, just to see the tank in that state at certain nights last season and in previous seasons?
Yeah, there's no going away from that. It's emotionally tough. I mean, when the tank is full and when it has the energy, we've seen it, it's one of the toughest buildings to play in. You've seen players say that when they depart, when they show up as well. It's, from a fan's perspective, it's harder. But on the other hand, you look at the people in the building and go, that's your core fan base. That's what you're building from. It's getting the more casual fan to pay attention, which has happened a lot in the last 30, 40 days. So it feels like we're on that upswing.
Looking at other sports, have you seen how one player can change the business paradigm for a team? Not to put that kind of pressure on Macklin, but just, again, seeing other teams and your experience as a sports fan, a sports executive, so familiar with the Bay Area. Have you seen how one player can change everything?
So the short answer is yes, but I want to be that this is a lot of pressure to be putting on.
Yes, of course.
Celebrini. And let's be fair. We got Eklund and Zetterlund and others are no slouches. Will Smith has really turned into a player as well, right? I mean, Dickinson signed his ELC. We'll see what happens. I mean, this isn't about just Macklin Celebrini. He's sort of the center of this, I think, but I think you really ought to step back. So having said that, though, there are plenty of instances where, even here in the Bay Area, where one player catalyzes a core. You could argue, go back, 12-ish years ago, and Stephen Curry energized a brand new Draymond Green, and then came Clay as well, and became the center of that core as well. You could look at Joe Montana, if you go back 20 years for the Niners as well. So it shouldn't be about just that player, but one player often becomes the face of what a team is doing.
And that could change everything, right? I mean, not just the ticket sales, merchandising, as we've seen with the Golden State Warriors, right? Like, Golden State Warriors merchandise 20 years ago, no one was buying it back then, right? And so just everything, right? Just it's an all-encompassing kind of
but, again, because hockey is in some sense the ultimate team sport. And there's actually some analytics that show that team is even more important in hockey than it is in any other of the big 5 sports here in the U.S. You got to be careful, because what happens when your one player is out or with that. Right. So you don't want to bet everything on one. You want to bet on the team.
And So I've been a Sharks fan since I was a very small child, but I remember all these names that we're hearing now, like Mike Grier and Joe Thornton and Ryan Clough, and also in recent news that they were all, huge parts of this very, very successful Sharks franchise. And now it seems like they're all back. It feels like the gang's back together. Do you have any insight into that, or do you see any value in that kind of return of the good times, I guess, for the Sharks?
For sure. And I will say I'm involved in many of those decisions. They don't happen accidentally. And I think, especially when you're going to have a young team, it'll be interesting to see how young we are in that opening night lineup. But it's certainly possible we'll be on the bottom 5 in terms of youngest, or top 5, depending on how you actually want to think about that. That you have mentors both on and off the ice to talk about what it means to be able to play 100 games in the NHL and 500 games in the NHL and 1,000 games. This is not about one season. This is on your professional journey. And what does it mean to be a pro and to be on the ice with a Patty Marleau or a Joe Thornton teaching you, and off the ice, about nutrition, about that environment of having not just good vibes, but I would call it professionalism with long careers, is really important for young kids.
Before we move out,
by the way, I should also say,
yes,
it's good for fans too. Let's be clear. Come on.
I'm curious why you think that they all themselves are coming back. Is there something about the Bay Area? I mean, obviously, it's the Bay Area. They enjoy living here and everything, but it seems like they're all not collectively, but individually coming to that decision to come back to the Sharks.
Again, this is one of those times where you're asking me to speak on behalf of somebody else. I'll tell you what I've heard summarized is they believe that we are starting something special here, and that there's a real chance, and I don't want to put time frame on it because nobody knows how long and how deep that is, to build a repeatable long run, hopefully with the one success that we didn't have during that last repeatable long run, and they want to be a part of it.
I love it.
The pushback on that, though, from some more cynically minded people or
like
fans,
Sheng.
or I'm not a fan, though, is that core, though, did not get you that ultimate goal of the Stanley Cup. But you kind of ascribe that to the teams were good. All those, I mean, as a fan yourself back then, the teams were really good. It just that the kind of couple of bounces or injuries or whatever just didn't go the Sharks' way.
Yeah, I mean, Sheng, you may or may not have watched a lot of those teams. I don't know.
I did.
But I watched.
I grew up a Kings fan, so yes, I did.
There you
actually.
go. I mean, so a couple of shifts here and there fundamentally changed the franchise. I mean,
Sure.
The Kings got in an 8 seed that year, and nobody thought they could possibly win, and they managed to win. And so there's a reason we call this the toughest trophy in sports to win. And I think you got to put yourself in a position to win, and we did for 15 years. Sadly, it didn't come quite true. And so I think there were plenty of teams that had a very good shot of winning and just didn't.
That's fair. And before we leave the hockey stuff, I did want to go back to one thing, sort of listening to everything that he said, a question that we talked about early on. So going back to kind of, I just was thinking about that Tomas Hertl and re-signing him, and sort of the idea, I guess when you re-sign him, you're trying to make the playoffs, obviously that year and then the next year, right? And is there sort of we're changing up the strat, even for Tomas, like where you kind of tell him like, hey, we signed you to this contract a couple months ago, but things might be a little different now.
So I know you want to find a moment in time where some blinding light came through and we all said, okay, it's time to shift. It's never quite like that. It's a little by little. And then one day you go, there's more positive in going this other direction than going in the direction we were. You just make the shift at that point. There's no one single moment. It's the last straw kind of thing.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I know. As a reporter, I always look for that one thing I can write about, that way to start a story, so that lead. So
sadly, there's no flash of inspiration or tablets that came down from above or anything like that. Sorry.
No tablets that came down from Hasso?
No.
So along with Macklin Celebrini's debut in 2024-25, that season's also going to mark a change in the team's SAP Center management agreement. Yep. And you said before that the arena management agreement, it's until 2040, but that the terms changed unfavorably for the Sharks on July 1st, 2025.
Correct.
And so if you can't improve the agreement more in the Sharks' favor by July 1st, 2025, what does that mean for the Sharks at SAP Center?
Yeah, so let's go facts first, and then speculation second, and try to separate the two. So factually first, starting July 1st, 2025, we have the yearly unilateral right to give a 3-year notice. So if we didn't change the terms by 2025, we could choose, I'm speculating here, this is not likely to happen, but just factually to say, we don't want to be here, but it would still be 3 years from now.
Right.
So you can pretty much, that means next season and 3 seasons after that, we're playing in the Shark Tank at SAP Center, right? Because it's a 3 years notice.
Right.
Practically, however, if it were to come to that, and I don't see a high probability comes to that, we'll go to that conversation in a moment. The question is, where would we play? Practically, it takes 5 to 10 years to build a new arena because of land rights. We see this playing out in baseball at another team, which we are not going to talk about live in this as well. It's hard, even harder in hockey because you need the ice plants and all that stuff.
Sure.
So a relo is, even if we're in a negative situation, is not imminent. Unless, of course, you think we get so mad we pull in Arizona, which has not been our style necessarily as well. So you're fine for the next 4 seasons. Having said that, we're in very regular conversations with the city. We've had a fantastic relation. Will say this again. There are a lot of Bay Area sports teams that have not had very good relationships with their cities. We are not one of them. We've had a good relationship with San Jose for 35 years. Conversations are going well. And if you ask me as today, July 11, 2024, I don't see much probability that we end up in July 1 in an unfavorable situation.
Okay.
Having said that, that is always a possibility. Things could change, but it doesn't feel that way right now.
It sounds like kind of, and again, I guess this is the speculative part of what you're saying, that even if things did not work out at SAP Center with the city, that the overall idea is still to find a place in San Jose or the Bay Area if it did come to that.
Yes. Hasso has been very clear. He's a Bay Area guy. He wants to stay in San Jose if it makes anything possible. If for some reason this site doesn't work out for some other reason, we would look at other places in San Jose first and then the rest of the Bay Area.
Thank goodness. I wasn't looking forward to moving to Arizona. It's really hot there.
I think 118, I saw today or something like that.
I heard they need an arena still, so I think we're...
that is true. They do still need an arena. Oh, I guess we could play in Tech CU for a couple of years. They pulled that off.
Yeah, right. That worked, right?
Same amount of fans, right? Yeah.
No, sorry. All jokes aside, anybody who's watching this and saying that Jonathan says we're going to play in Tech CU, I did not say that. Let's clear up that rumor right away.
All right, guys, the Sharks are moving and they're going to Tech CU Arena. I think that's what I heard from in all this.
Sheng, somebody listening to your podcast will think I actually said that. Please don't joke.
Okay, all jokes aside, that was a joke, guys. So the Mercury News did report that a potential sticking point for the arena management agreement is that the Sharks and the city of San Jose, they're kind of trying to figure out who will pay for the upgrades at SAP Center in the coming years or who will pay how much of it. Is that generally accurate in terms of what is unfavorable for you guys?
One of the negotiation points. I have to be very careful given that we're in a negotiation. I can't divulge very much, but I can say, because I've said publicly, Hasso himself has funded more than $100 million of basic improvements to the arena over the last decade, even though we don't own this building. It's a city-owned building. And so it is relatively unusual. I can't find another example. Maybe somebody else has, for a tenant to pay for the landlord improvements. Normally, if your sink busts and you're a tenant, the landlord pays for it, not the tenant. If the hot water doesn't work, normally the landlord pays for it, not the tenant. The tenant has been paying for those improvements over the last 30 years. There probably needs to be a more equitable parity or something.
Okay, all right. Speaking in your terms, would the tenant like to be the landlord one day? Would Hasso like to buy SAP Center? Is that come up?
Those are the kind of answers I can't say given where we are in the negotiations.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, Jonathan, really, really appreciate your time here. So I got to close out with one thing. So I need to ask you about the lawsuit against the Sharks Ice, and former Junior Sharks coach Kevin Whitmer for essentially, in terms of the Sharks part of the lawsuit, failing to follow proper procedures to protect Junior Sharks players from Whitmer. And Whitmer has been accused of lewd and lascivious acts with a minor, and the Sharks and Sharks Ice are accused of failing to take action against Whitmer, even though supervisors were, and I quote, notified several times about Whitmer breaking locker room rules. And so anyway, what can you say about that?
It's an active lawsuit. I can't say anything other than I'm pretty sure the right thing's going to happen.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, well, Jonathan, I appreciate you coming on and taking on the questions, the hard ones like Andre Becker's number and the easy ones too. And anyway, anything else you like to say, just kind of on behalf of the Sharks? Such a passionate advocate for them.
Yeah, I would just say probably two things. One obvious, one less obvious. If you don't already have your tickets for November 23rd, they will sell out, and they will sell out soon. Don't wake up in October and go, oh, I wish I could go to Jumbo's retirement. It'll be too late then. I don't know that we publicly announced, so I'll give you an exclusive here. We will do another Legends game before that as well, just like we did. So those will also be available. They probably won't go on sale until later this year, but expect another one of those. And then when you're in the building on opening night, you will see a number of other off-season improvements we've made, including food and beverage on the concourse. Those are the two quick sound bites.
Okay, great. Anything you say in particular about the off-season, the improvements? Anything more about that?
Yeah, I think probably the one that'll be a lot of them are back office stuff, as I sort of alluded to, but the one most noticeable, well, maybe two that people will notice. One is when you come in the south entrance, the food and beverage stand immediately to the left when you come up to the stairs has been changed. Well, is in the process of being changed to a self-service. That one backs up and has been breaking our 7-minute rule, which we don't want people to wait for more than 7 minutes. And by using self-checkout like you do at grocery stores and stuff like that, we've actually been able to increase throughput by almost 50%. And so that one will go to that. And if you've ever attended an event in what's called the Rinkside Room, which is the big darkish room by the rink, it's just dark and dungeony feeling. And so we're dramatically renovating that one to make it a bit brighter and easier to entertain there.
Okay, yeah, I remember Patrick Marleau after his jersey retirement, he had a press conference in there, and it was a little depressing. So.
Yeah, I often do my Sharks insights in that room as well, and it's kind of dark and depressing too.
All right, well, Jonathan, thanks so much. Have a great summer, and we'll see you at the rink soon.
Sounds good. Take care. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks so much, Jonathan.